Hi, I'm Angel Davis with Angel Davis Coaching, and you are listening to Verbally Naked, a podcast devoted to the enhancement of relationships, hopefully. I am here with Mr. Peter Hermes,
Hello.
and for those that might just be tuning in, Peter is my partner in crime.
That's right.
Um, he is my fiance.
We're getting married this year.
We are. It's funny that you say that, Peter.
Oh, goodness.
So
Nice lead in.
yeah, right. Because we are wedding planning, and we have been running across quizzes, if you will, from dealing with relationships and love, and so we decided, to take a look at some of those and just see the validity of the questions that are on these quizzes that we see.
Well, we're in season 2 of our podcast, and this season is all about the media, all about movies and TV shows and quizzes and magazines. And so this week we're talking about
this particular
a quiz, not quizzes in general.
Right. Because I think that whether we admit it or not, I think some of those things do influence the way we approach our relationships, the way we look at, measure, our relationships. Because certainly I have certainly been guilty of going to a movie and, looking at something or seeing something that somebody does, and, you have that aw moment.
Mm-hmm.
And then sometimes you have that this is completely and 100% unrealistic.
Oh, most of the time.
But, anyway, so here we are looking at a quiz. And this quiz is done by a Kayla Watkins.
Sent to us by
The Knot.
TheKnot.com.
Which is
where we host our wedding website.
Yeah, and this is a website, there's several out there now that help you just with wedding planning and invitations and all of these things. And, they send you things like this. So Kayla is a lifestyle blogger at kaylas5things.com. And she, according to her, these are 8 questions she was asked in premarital counseling that every couple should talk about, in her opinion. So right. Peter and I took a look at this and decided, how do we feel about these questions? And if we thought, from our opinion, if we think that they are indeed valid or something that should be looked at.
Sure. So let's run down the whole list real quick so everybody knows what all the questions are, and then we'll kind of tackle them one by one. Because it's an 8-question quiz, and it's... it's one of those that's set up to be, you should know these things going in. And we found a few of them to be very important. We found a few of them to be quite unimportant. So let's just go down the list real quick, and then we'll start at number 1. What do you think?
Okay, take it away.
All right. So number 1 is, in which areas would you like to help your fiance improve? Bit of a trap type trick question, but we'll get into that. Number 2 is, what are some matters about which the two of you have different opinions? Mm-hmm. Number 3, who will manage your family finances? Number 4, if both have careers, whose job determines where you will live? Number 5, what do you usually fight about, and when do you usually fight? 6, if you should be unable to have your own, would you adopt a child? 7, on your deathbed, what would sum up your life as worthwhile? What would give meaning to your life? And finally, number 8, what do you intend to do to stay in love? So this is the quiz that we are going to talk about this week.
I'll take number 1. In which areas would you like to help your fiance improve $4,000, Alex?
Okay. So let's break this one down.
Yeah, let's
just very quickly.
Yeah.
Like I said, I think it's a little bit of a tricky trap type question to lead off the quiz. It's basically asking you what what flaws do you see in your partner?
Yeah.
And are these flaws that you can get past? Are you going to try to fix your partner? I think what it's trying to do is just make light of what are the things that problem areas that you see in your partner. And then once you know those, that you can sort of go, well, that one's a big one, and that one I can, just kind of throw away. That's how I read that question.
Well, I think, well, you know what? Let me just speak from my perspective, because I don't know what people feel when they get in relationships, but I certainly want my partner to hold me accountable for the things I say, the things I do. And I feel like it's, when you get into a relationship, you tend to be attracted to personalities or things that you see in other people that maybe you don't quite possess. And so it's kind of an attractive thing. Like, you're stronger in this area and I can lean on you and depend on you for that. And so I kind of feel like it's probably a question that's geared towards, where do you see that your partner might be weak in an area in which you might have a strength in, and you could help them improve in that. Like, you are way more organized than I am. I tend to be a little bit of a clutter person. I have my moments where the clutter gets to be a certain level and then I like clear everything out, but you tend to keep everything in its little place. And it helps me sometimes to come in the office and go, my desk is atrocious. I need to, because yours is like got 2 things on it.
I don't like.
Yeah, but
I'm not a hoarder.
I'm not a hoarder. What is that?
I know when to throw things away.
But you know what I mean. Like, so I think that is the intent behind the question. But I certainly think if you just blatantly ask that, then you're opening up the door to, yes, please tell me all the things that you find wrong about me.
Right.
And consider there's nothing wrong about your partner, or why would you be with them?
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. I mean, we all are imperfect beings, and that's part of the charm, and usually in some things. Now, if it's something really big, you should be questioning why you're in this relationship to begin with.
Agreed.
Yeah. All right. Tricky, right? It's a slippery slope.
It is. Well, let's play along. So.
Oh,
yeah,
really?
Yeah. So name something about me that you would, an area in my life / personality that you would like to improve. And then I won't do the same for you. And then we'll move on to number 2.
He's going to be such a great husband. You really want me to answer that? Okay.
You don't have to.
I mean, I think probably the one thing that we've talked about in the past is tone, which probably is going to make some people that know me laugh. But because we both can have tone for sure, but I think mine comes at a certain point, and sometimes you just have tone. And then I'll say, it's particularly with Brian, but I'll say tone, and you look, and I can tell by your face that you're like, oh, wait, what'd I do? I said what I said. And I'm like, yeah, but you said it like you were going to rip somebody's head off.
Okay. I was going to say that my only complaint about you, your heart is too big.
Me? Well, you thought I was going to say that about you?
No, I'm just saying I just, you're too nice.
Me?
Yeah, I'm kidding.
Oh, thank you.
Yes. Yes, this is a conversation that we've had about my tone. Sure. And something that I would want you to improve in your life would probably. Oh,
Can I guess?
Sure. Maybe that'll help me.
I'm probably too rigid.
You're a little bit rigid, and that's fine. That's one of the things I do love about you.
He doesn't like rules.
No, I don't dislike rules. I just don't like too many of them. We were raised differently. We have different pasts.
Yes.
I use a term that she doesn't like, and that's the term is Girl Scout, and she's not a big fan of that term. So, but
No,
in
that
no
wasn't
way
it.
in no way would I want you to not be that anymore. I couldn't imagine what that would mean.
I hear you. I mean, so yeah, okay. So that wasn't. So what's your? I need to improve on. Such a weird question.
I don't know.
Yes, you do. Don't you lie for the public.
No, it's like I said, these are trick questions. I mean, or this particular one's a trick question. I would say, but this is something I think that I am guilty of as well, and that's just, I don't know if career ambition is the right word. I don't know, like.
Not ambitious enough?
Maybe.
Too ambitious?
Maybe.
I don't know what that means.
I don't either.
Well, but you said it.
I know I did. I was very happy when you decided to get back into acting. And I wanted to have seen that happen earlier.
Mm.
Now, is that a thing that I thought that you needed to improve on? That's a trick question. So, I don't know. So, I think we're not going to be getting married now. These quizzes, if anything, are going to cause rifts in your relationship.
No, but that's not a riff. I think you just don't know how to answer that one.
I probably don't.
Yeah, okay. Number
Moving
2.
on.
All right.
Number 2, what are some matters about which the two of you have different opinions? I personally think that this question is worded incorrectly.
Agreed.
Because everybody's got different opinions, whether it comes to aesthetics or, whatever. I think
or whether you want steak or shrimp tonight.
Right. I really think this should say, what are some matters about which the two of you have different core beliefs about? Maybe a little bit deeper.
Mm-hmm.
If you were in a relationship with somebody and you were very passionate about chocolate chip cookies and your partner hates chocolate chip cookies, you're going to run into some problems down the line. Now, you can replace the word chocolate chip cookies.
I beg to differ.
Chocolate chip cookies with, say, your thoughts on abortion or your thoughts on a bigger issue. But the idea is the same. This is how I talk to Brian about certain things. I talk in terms of ice cream. If you like chocolate ice cream and I like vanilla ice cream, I mean, how can we ever agree on anything?
That's the silliest thing I've ever said.
So.
Well, I mean, but I agree with you on the wording of the question because, what are some matters about which the two of you have different opinions on?
The two of us can't agree on our movie tastes are
movie
all over the. But who cares?
Yeah, our movie tastes.
She makes fun of me because I think Nicolas Cage is a living legend.
But no, I think that, if people looked at our relationship and based our relationship on our difference of opinions, they would think that we are not in love.
Right. And we've heard that comment before.
Yeah. Like we actually don't agree on a lot of things, small things.
Oh yeah.
But
tons.
The big things we are absolutely on par with. They're like our belief systems are almost identical, I would say. And so the big things that matter to us, so because that affects the way you raise your children, the friends you might have, the interest you might have. So I think that, the question is to just say, what are some matters that you two differ about is very flippant. And it makes me say, why is this an important question that I need to care about? But you say belief systems, and that's a whole different conversation.
Certainly.
And I think it's a valid one, although there are people that can work out things like that. There are Democrats and Republicans who marry.
House is divided all over the place.
And I think that's a big one. I would say in the same vein, I'm sure there are people who are pro-life and pro-choice. I don't know. There are definitely people that are religious and some are not.
That's true. Two different religions.
Some can be two different religions. Yeah.
So it all depends on what matters to you and your partner.
And what matters to you. what matters that your partner, because obviously, take for instance the two religions.
Mm-hmm.
Clearly, your partner being the same religion is not super important. In most cases, with religion, your partner, people want their partner to be the same religion, period. Mm-hmm. And that's kind of a deal breaker for a lot of people. But for those who aren't, then it's important, that's not important that their partner be the same religion.
Right.
But maybe believing in something is.
Sure.
I don't know. But those are things that should absolutely be discussed, because you don't want to deal with that stuff way later.
No, of course.
Because it definitely can be a deal breaker.
Right. And like we said, this quiz, what's her name? Kayla, in her opening paragraph says that this was something that was done in premarital counseling. I mean, these are questions that are meant to be asked not in the middle of a marriage, but before you make, that step.
Yeah, to make sure that you're right for each other.
Right. So, moving on?
Yes. No, move on.
Number 3, who will manage your family finances? I think this is a fairly just practical question. I don't think this is, who's better at math? I think that person might be better at handling who doesn't have the gambling problem. Maybe that person should. I think that.
I think it's important. I don't think it's as flippant as you're making it be. Yeah.
No. It's absolutely important, but I don't think a lot of people.
This destroys relationships, finances.
Finances. There's a lot of stress involved with finances, but who will manage your family finances? I think that's pretty. I think that's sort of like an easy one for most people. Nobody's fighting on who's going to have control of the checkbook. Well, they're going to be fighting over the amount of money in that check.
That's very true. I think that yes. Who's spending the money?
Who's
that goes
paying the bills and
right,
all that kind of stuff? It's. I don't think that. I mean, this question's important, but it's.
You don't think people fight over this? Like
I think people
want
fight
control.
over finances.
But you don't think that people fight over? I want to handle it.
We don't.
No, we don't.
And I'm sure that some people do. But I think that those people that do have ugly divorces.
I say I'm sure there are people out there that absolutely want control over that, and there probably is, especially if I would say certain types of people have a very traditional way of looking at it, and therefore the male generally is in charge of the finances in the house. For certain types of people, certain religions.
It was for my parents.
It's the male.
I really think it's the person that's best at math and that doesn't have a gambling problem. It sounds flippant, but I just feel like...
Or a spending problem in general.
The most fiscally minded, mathematically minded person is probably the best choice.
But that is something that should be discussed ahead of time. The boy and I had separate finances, and that's something that we had agreed to.
It should be discussed, and once that decision is made, it's not like the other person is cut out of the equation. It's like, I control all of this and I make all of these decisions. Yes, agreed, that's ridiculous.
So I guess I would like this question piggybacked with not only who will manage it, but how will it be set up? Because some people have a joint account, but then they also have separate accounts for their walking around money, as your grandmother would say.
Everybody's got their secret mistress stash.
I'm sorry?
Mm-hmm. in another name in another city. So we're moving on to number...
are you moving on?
Number 4, if both have careers, whose job determines where you will live? Now,
I think this is important. I think you think it's less important.
In our pre-chat before we started doing the podcast, Angel said that this was, for her, a very important one. For me, it's obviously very important, logistically speaking. It's just not... I don't know, not as important as some of these other questions. So tell me why you think that this is a very important one.
Because I think that if somebody gets, you're both working, but somebody gets an opportunity, let's say, that's going to require some significant uprooting, some whatever, but yet maybe it could be the dream job of that person. It could be that it just means more stability, more whatever, but the other person may be losing,
Right.
their whatever. That can be a really huge point of contention in a relationship, whereas like you just expect me to give up what I love and what I do because and so it has to be, you have to figure out the priorities, which kind of goes back to one of our podcasts last year. But the priorities of your relationship isn't we just do what's best for our family, period. Now, Peter and I we have a very different circumstance because both of us freelance and both of us have flexible schedules. So basically, when he gets a job, then I'm not trying to book anything or do anything while he does that because, well, I want to be home with Brian and vice versa.
Right.
If I have something that I need to go do or I need to have a meeting or whatever, then he's not scheduling anything. And we're constantly checking with each other before we make any kind of plans. Generally, work always wins out. So whoever's working and whatever, that's what we go for. But we haven't been up against, you're on set now that I'm acting again. Let's just, for the sake of this podcast, say I get a really great opportunity.
You got to go to New Orleans.
And I got to go to New Orleans
Right.
and you got to whatever. I'm sure that we'll figure out a babysitter
Absolutely.
in that situation. But
Well, this is talking about relocating.
But
this
yeah.
isn't just talking about for a week or two.
it's not
or a
right.
couple
This
of
is
months.
talking about, yeah.
I got a great job in Siberia.
Right.
And
But what if you got
the school system's
what if you got an
terrible there,
in-house
but we're gonna
job
be
in
making-
Atlanta?
I'm sorry?
What if you got an in-house job where,
Right.
that's something that we have that I think should be addressed
So
before
this-
you get married.
Right. This question is specifically asking whose job determines where you will live. They're saying not what the discussion is going to look like. This question says if both have careers, whose job wins? His or hers, or his, depending on what what relationship you're
Yeah,
in.
it could be hers or hers.
Which person
Yeah.
wins? And I think that's kind of a ridiculous.
Why? Okay, so I told you why I thought it was important. You tell me why you think it's ridiculous.
Well, I mean, it's all up for discussion. I mean, the way that this question is worded is before going in, before getting married, if in the future, if I get a better job, we're moving. And that's the end of that discussion. That's the discussion to be had when you get to that bridge.
I see what you're saying. So it's like going in.
This is asking you to pick before it's
yeah, it's
even
an
a
automatic
reality.
like, oh, well, no, my dreams are always going to be last.
Right. I think it's a ridiculous.
Okay.
These questions are a little bit. A lot of these quizzes are too broad. Some of these questions are a little bit too like pick right now.
Right.
Asking favorites. I hate questions that are like, "What's your favorite?" ... It's like I got thousands of favorites depending on.
Oh, you're one of the few people that can't pick a favorite. Some
So
could
that's-
argue that you just can't make a decision.
Are you arguing that? Okay. No.
So number
moving on. Number
5.
5. What do you usually fight about? And when do you usually fight?
I think this is a silly question.
I think this is a silly. It's worded.
It's
once
all
again,
about the wording.
Once again,
Yeah.
this quiz is not worded very well.
It's not.
We usually fight when we go through quizzes.
But like what? But like what? Like around 8:00?
Yeah, usually around. Anyway, whatever.
No.
On Thursdays. No,
So I think what it's trying to say,
is it trying to figure out patterns and
I
knowing
think
the
so.
pattern?
because it says, okay, what do you usually fight about? And maybe,
People fight about all kinds of stuff.
well, we have disagreements about a broad spectrum of things.
Absolutely.
We can't just, yeah. But, and I don't mean to say that we argue all the time. I just mean that it's not just one thing.
Constantly arguing.
It might not just be one thing that we just continuously come around to. Because some people it is, like we said, some people it's money.
Right.
When
It's very
money's
stressful.
involved, and so I
Family
think that's
planning. There's tons of stuff. That,
I think that's part of it. Part of the question is trying to determine:
Politics.
do you have a set of things that tend to set you off? But when do you usually fight is kind of odd to me.
right after dinner.
I'm like,
It just.
during my period.
I like. Did they mean like right before the paycheck, you know what I mean? Like,
yeah, I mean,
once the money has been spent that
twice
month,
a year,
or
around Christmas time.
That one to me doesn't make a whole lot of sense. Mm-mm. And like, who cares? Who cares when you fight? So we don't like this question.
We don't, because I think I understand the pattern, and I do think that there may be a pattern that you might be aware of, and that might be something to look at, like what's going on that's causing this. Is this something that we need to actually delve a little deeper into as to why this particular subject keeps us at odds? Mm-hmm. But the time frame is just silly. I don't think it matters when I think the most important, and we've discussed this, is how do you get through a fight? How do you argue?
Right. And we talked a lot about that
in what
season
way.
1.
Yeah. Do you argue? Can you have a disagreement and it be mature? How do you reconcile? They don't even ask that.
No, they don't. These questions are a little bit too on the nose without any follow-up.
Exactly.
This question should be, I don't really mind the what do you usually fight about, but the second part of that should be, and how do you communicate, or how do you resolve arguments? And I think the word fight shouldn't be there. It should be argue.
And the first thing, going back to the time or the pattern, Kayla even says, somehow I never really saw the pattern until we answered this question. So that is, what do you usually fight about, is trying to get towards, is there a pattern there? I don't know if she answers anything about the when, but I don't really care because it's silly. So
number 6 is the last one that I think, and I don't even think this one's all that important. This is an easy conversation that people, aren't going to argue or anything about. This is a family planning question. And basically, number 6 is, if you should be unable to have your own, would you adopt a child? I think that's a quick, easy conversation.
It might not be easy, but it's a conversation that I think you should absolutely have discussed before now.
No, this is a no-brainer
because,
for me.
Yeah, I mean, you should have, before you get to pre-counseling, discussed whether or not you want to have a family.
Right.
And if you cannot have a family, what that means and what that looks like. And
your own family.
Biologically. Sorry. Your biological family, what that looks like. I think that's a pretty standard question when you get into family planning.
That's the same. To me, that's the same kind of question as who's going to manage your finances. These are just standard.
They should be. Now, I don't know. And maybe they're not for some people.
And for us, and we're not,
No, we're not trying to say that everybody's like us, or that everybody needs to be like us, or that we're like everybody. I mean, but just from our standpoint in our relationship, I do think that some of these are questions that maybe should be in a lot of relationships, but
right.
Yeah. I mean, we were pretty, we're just like, hey, how you feel about this?
Yeah. Yeah. And for me, I think it should be like that.
Yeah. But I do know that this is a pretty big conversation. Some people are kind of like, if I can't have any on my own, then I don't want to adopt. And some people may be like, but I do. Mm-hmm. This can also be, I've seen, I mean, kids are a really tough topic. Sure. So, but I do think that people should discuss the infertility thing a little bit more than we do, because it does blindside a lot of people. I mean, you grow up and you think, I'm going to get a relationship and I'm going to have babies.
Right.
If that's your thing. And then, I've known several people who can't.
Yeah. I mean, if the question was, well, not the question, but like if it's trying to get to the point, like if you are about to marry somebody who is infertile,
right,
male or female, how important is having your own family? Is that a deal breaker?
Yeah.
And then it moves on to, would you adopt?
Right. Now, I imagine, and again, this is like...
And that's talking about straight couples. I mean, obviously...
agreed, yes.
Obviously, it's kind of leaving out a whole...
This is leaving out an entire group, yeah.
But anyway.
But in some of those cases, they can have them. I mean,
well, certainly.
yeah.
Life finds a way.
Life finds a way. But I do, yeah. I mean, hopefully if you are infertile, that has been brought up way before pre-counseling.
Right. Oh, by the way, new bride, I'm, barren or whatever.
Yeah, you get asked this question and you're like, oh, did I mention that I'm infertile?
These last two questions, I think, are just, I think that they were like, oh, we want to make this 2 questions longer, so we're just going to throw these in there. And I think they don't require a whole lot of our time.
Okay.
So number 7 is, on your deathbed, what would sum up your life as worthwhile? What would give meaning to your life? And number 8, what do you intend to do to stay in love?
All right, well, let's go to number 7.
Those are busy work questions.
Oh, no.
And go do your homework. I mean, these aren't practical questions.
Here's what I think number 7's getting at. And I know, like, I'm all of a sudden trying to come up with the context for the silly questions. But I feel like it is a purpose question, which is, do you have purpose outside of your partner?
Okay.
And what does that look like? So on your deathbed, right, what would sum up your life as worthwhile or whatever? What would give meaning to your life? So it's do you have, I think it is getting at, do you have any kind of purpose? What legacy do you want to leave behind? Again, I'm guessing about the context of the conversation, but that's the way I kind of look at it. Because, I mean, otherwise, you're right. It's a ridiculous question, and I don't think they mean it to be.
Right.
And
well,
I think,
in her own words,
oh,
she says, the 3 things that I learned from answering this question was admitting that you're not the ultimate fulfillment for your fiance's life, which is odd to me. Number 2, finding out what else is, and then doing everything in your power to give that to your partner. And then 3rd, be on the receiving end of both step 1 and step 2.
Why do you find the first step,
it just
admitting you're not the ultimate fulfillment for your fiance's life, why do you find that, I don't know what you said, silly? Or
it confuses me. I think you're so lucky to have me kind of thing is what that feels like.
Wait, what?
I don't quite, maybe I just don't understand. Admitting
she's saying that you're
not
not the end all and be all of your fiance's life. So in other words, I am not your everything.
Right. Okay.
So me, Angel, is not Peter's everything.
Okay.
That Peter has a life outside of me.
To me, that's obvious, but I guess not to everybody.
No. Oh no. I mean, I think that's something that people kind of get into later on in a relationship when you have, I mean, you start getting into those clingy conversations.
Okay.
You know what I mean? Like, you always want to be with me, or I can't always be with you all the time, or sometimes I just need space to do whatever, and people can take that the wrong way. Like, so no, I think that is valid. That's why I said I think that's what the question was getting at. Because I think, and we talked about this, you're an individual before you come into a relationship, and you should not necessarily give that part of yourself up. It's figuring out how to keep that and be with your partner at the same time, because you have relationship goals, but you have individual goals as well.
Okay.
And so I think it's just learning that.
Maybe, again, it's a wording issue.
Is it a word?
This whole deathbed nonsense.
That one to me is worded admitting you're not the ultimate fulfillment.
No, the question.
Oh.
On your deathbed. It's like, whatever.
It's so dramatic.
Right. Okay, so maybe it's a little bit more important than I had led on.
No, I just think that they're saying that that you should have more purpose than just each other.
Okay, I get that. I agree with that.
Okay.
I think that to me is.
I mean, you don't.
Should be an obvious.
I am your everything.
Well, you'd like to think that.
No, it's true.
Mm-hmm.
Honey, you don't have to lie.
You don't have to lie. Number 8. What do you intend to do to stay in love? I just puked a little bit in my mouth.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
You puked a little in your mouth.
And just swallowed it back. It's one of those Cosmo type questions. Tell me how you feel about that question.
Once again, I look at the intent behind what I think is the intent behind the question. I think it's getting at that obviously we all know the honeymoon phase goes away. And I think it's, a lot of people approach relationships with like, oh, it's supposed to be easy. And again, I do kind of think some of our media influence hints at that. I personally don't think that it's a bad thing to work at your relationship. And I don't mean when I say work, I don't mean like, it's just like it's a Monday to be with you every day.
No,
I mean that if I'm take my health for instance, or working out, I work at it. It doesn't, I work at it. I have to think about what I'm going to eat. I have to think about what exercises I'm going to do, what classes I'm going to take in order to stay fit. It's not easy. It's something that I consciously deal with. And I think that people kind of get into this false idea like, well, I don't really have to work. I shouldn't have to work at my relationship. No, you should want to. Mm-hmm. You should want to put effort into your relationship. If you want to change the word, maybe work is not the word for you, so maybe it's practice. Practice makes, right? Well, not perfect, but practice gets you, higher, more to your goal. Mm-hmm. And I feel like that's kind of what it's like. So when you get to a place where, that honeymoon phase is over or whatever, what are you willing to do mm-hmm. to keep your love strong?
Okay.
What are you doing what are you willing to put in to make sure your partner knows that your love for them is still the same, hasn't changed, that you're rock solid?
Okay.
I don't think it's like date nights and roses.
No, I
and
get it.
Candy
I get it.
And again, it might just be a wording issue, but I think that that's really the intent of the conversation is what are you willing to work for?
Okay.
You don't get that? Mm-hmm. You don't get that from this question?
No, I do now that it's been explained to me, just like the last one. It's just maybe I have this just immediate, reaction to questions like that.
I mean, if you take the questions word for word, I can understand it.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's not set up. And I don't know if these were the exact questions or if Kayla kind of just did a general, this was kind of like what they said.
Right. So that's the quiz.
So you're not going to say what you're willing to work for?
No. Okay. That was the quiz.
Really?
You want to know what I'm going to do to keep things spicy?
That's not what the question said.
That's the way I'm reading it. How not to let your relationship go stale. Keeping it spicy.
Okay.
I'm going to continue to pester you and annoy you and make you laugh.
You do make me laugh every single day, almost every single day.
And I'm not going to take you for granted, and I'm not going to forget what you mean. And
what?
To me.
Thank you. You should have wrote this quiz because that was like a what sentence?
Right.
Yeah.
So
I think we had a mixed bag.
We did.
I don't know how
I don't know
felt.
if this was the best quiz for us to start off with. But we got through it, and we'll do other ones. I want to do one of those really cheesy throwaway quizzes at one point. Like
Why?
pick up a Cosmo and do what to look for in your man kind of quizzes.
How to keep your relationship
hot. I want to do one of those quizzes because I think that those are more entertaining. This one is trying as hard as it can to be relevant.
Well, and you know what?
It insists upon itself.
No, it does not. To its defense, I appreciate the fact that it actually was geared towards things that might actually enhance your relationships versus the throwaways that you see mostly.
Mm-hmm.
And you know what? We don't want to give the impression that we think everybody puts a lot of stock into these quizzes, but I do know some people tend to look at these, and you do. You can't help but measure your relationship to what you read or what you're seeing on TV, and that's kind of what we're looking at. You know, how are some of these things influencing us, and is it really rooted in reality? I think this quiz, for the most part, was trying to get at more realistic questions that you should be asking prior to getting married. And I think I would go as to say just being in a relationship, period. Okay. Even if you're not even if you haven't popped the question, these are things that you should know if you're in a relationship where you think you might have a future with that person. Agreed?
Agreed.
All right. Quiz number 1. We did it.
Mm-hmm. All right. Well, we're going to wrap this episode.
We are. I think we
got a little long tonight.
Oh, did we?
Well, a little.
I think we should do a movie.
Well, yeah, we have 2 weeks. We did a movie last time. Maybe we should do a TV show.
Oh.
I'd love to do either Insecure.
People have been talking about This Is Us,
which we're not familiar at all with.
Yeah,
so maybe over the next 2 weeks we'll binge watch the first season. Who knows? The next one will be a mystery.
Ooh.
We're not 100% sure what we're going to do next time, but tune in. It'll be a good one. It'll be a good one.
Did you really?
Mm-hmm.
All right. So
we're going to get her done.
I'm Angel Davis.
I'm Peter Hermes.
And you've been listening to Verbally Naked, and we'll see you back here in 2 weeks. And as always, live big.